We all are only 1 degree removed from knowing someone who is being impacted by workplace violence or some form of online exploitation. This issue filters into employee wellness, impacting engagement at work. Let's bridge this gap by bringing awareness and education to these pressing issues and shield the vulnerable. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Shield the Vulnerable. I've got a really cool guest here today, Alisha Brown. Alisha is, she's a child welfare leader in Wisconsin that focuses on program and policy development surrounding strategic initiatives centered around family first to help place children in need of care within, a kin or a kin-like role. But we're going to really break that down and talk more about that and some of the other work that you're doing, Alisha, when it comes to leadership development and coaching as well. But outside, Alisha, outside of your professional work, you're a mom and a wife. You've got 3 daughters, 3 dogs. Sounds like you're super active with volleyball and basketball and softball and, everything to do with your kids, which is awesome. I think it aligns so much with the work that you're doing. And you're very community focused. You're a board member of Heads Up Fact Cities, which serves young adults that have been impacted by the child welfare system. So you are doing so many amazing things with serving human beings and helping youth, helping restructure, the future of child welfare. So Alisha, welcome. Thank you for being here today with us.
Thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing that really stood out to me when we first spoke was the need for youth who have been in care to be stayed closely tied to their family, their culture, and their community. And I think this is something that so quickly gets lost in a big system. It can't be
hmm
easy to manage, it can't be easy to direct, but it's such an important thing. And I look back at this, and one thing that stood out to me, when you said that, and not to draw the parallel to this necessarily, but was, going back to residential schools where we take youth out of their family home and you're actually trying to change their culture and change their community. And you're working in the exact opposite of that. You see the need to keep youth who need that, that extra care closer to their family, closer to their community. And so what work are you doing when it comes to this? And what is that looking like in the state of Wisconsin?
Yeah, sure. So there is a huge, and there has been a huge push, right, for families to first remain together. Let's first keep them together and not have that separation. But we all know there are situations that require that to happen. And then so being able to lean into where are we building that connection? Where are we building that sense of belonging for children and families, youth? Understanding that that is really just a source of identity. It's a source of resilience to build that up. And so a variety of initiatives taking place here in Wisconsin to elevate that. We've been able to do some changes in licensing to expand the definition of relatives to like kin, really kind of, again, leaning into the importance of that family connection, because what we know is that kids do better when they are with their families. They are with people who know their stories, know their favorite foods. They feel safe. They feel connected. I've worked a long time in the field, and my question always is, when kids have a tendency to maybe run from a placement, what are they running from? What are they running to? And
Okay.
so often it's people. You might think, oh, they're getting into trouble, they're making poor choices, but they're running to their people. And so how can we, as a system, as an organization, really make sure that we are seeking out relatives? I have a little saying of like connection over convenience, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what I mean by that is it is very convenient to choose to place with a foster home, right?
Yeah.
We know them. They've done background checks, we've done home studies, they've really been vetted, they've been identified as somebody that is absolutely safe, which isn't always true, but it's
Hmm.
safe for children to be with, and it's convenient. We can make those phone calls and have somebody willing um, to take on a child or a youth. But here's the thing, we're missing the connection when we do that. So
Right.
if we can just slow down a bit and think about what it means to build those connections. Yes, we might not know Aunt Betty, but let's stop. Let's think about it. She might be not be picture perfect like we've identified, a licensed foster parent to be, but how do we then build supports around that family
Okay.
so that a kid can be with them?
So I don't want to put words in your mouth here. Would is in that kind of purview, is foster families more meant to be as a last resort because there's
Mhm.
not an appropriate kin or kin like role to fulfill that?
Yeah, absolutely. There are statutes and standards and policies that really all direct us to start with family first,
Hmm.
starting with identifying those relatives. Um, and oftentimes, when we're in that decision-making role, we're in a time of crisis. And, maybe
Right.
we're not asking the necessary questions that are needed to be asked to identify family members that would be willing to step up and help
Okay.
care for
So
their loved one.
let me ask you then one thing with relation to that with kin families, because you
Mhm.
have kin, right? Your extended family, and now you have biological mom and dad or whoever it may be. When with the work that you're doing, is the ultimate goal to get them back with the biological parents and those who are there? Or is there sometimes where you go, that's just not going to be the appropriate route and we need to cut the ties there and they're going to
Mhm.
stay in that kin, which still keeps them closer to their culture or community? Or are you hoping to ultimately end them back up in that biological, birth home that they were in?
Mhm. Yeah, the goal is absolutely always to have children go back to the family that they, were growing up in. So with a parent or caregiver, um, and that we as an agency and system should be doing absolutely everything in our power to do that so they can safely return home. Kids
Hmm.
want to be with their parents. I know as a whole, it might be really perplexing to think about that. Some things that happen within families are traumatic and scary,
Yeah.
and maybe they shouldn't have happened, but they did. But at the end of the day, we really are seeing that kids do, despite everything that has happened, want to be with their parents. Often in
Yeah.
situations where reunification doesn't happen, they reach age 18, and where do they go? They go home because
Right.
that's where they feel that sense of belonging. Um, yeah,
Now,
so that is the goal.
I want to challenge a question there, and it's a question.
Yeah.
That's an innate thing that you like. That's that nature versus nurture type of thing where kids are going to feel that. Is it ever commonplace where home still may not be the safest place or where
Mhm.
things have happened there, but that's where kids still feel as though they need to be? Are you
Yeah.
ever experiencing that? And if so, how in the child welfare world are you looking at this to go, how do we really differentiate and know sometimes what may be happening in those dynamics?
Yeah. So again, I think it's about slowing everything down. We're very a crisis-driven system at times. And so being able to identify what things are happening within homes that are
Yeah.
true child protection safety and what pieces are values, biases, being able to separate those things, but then being able to build that system of support. So many of the families that I have worked with over the years, um, they don't they don't want to make the decisions that they've made. In many situations, it's situations of neglect.
Hmm.
What you see on TV, those really kind of heinous physical abuse cases, do they occur? Yes, absolutely, but they are truly the minority. And so being able to provide parents with maybe the things that they didn't receive growing up as a child, building that support system, offering services. Um, I actually recently ran into one of my very early moms that I worked with. Um, was at Petco with my daughter, and all of a sudden I looked up and there she was, and she's like, Alisha. And I said, hey. And
Yeah.
we just kind of reconnected. She updated me on her life. And she's somebody that has, stayed at the forefront of my mind often. She was a young mom. Um, and so we ended that conversation and went our separate ways. And a few minutes later, she came back and she's like, you know what? I have to say something to you that I don't think I said to you when we were working together. She's like, I just want to say thank you. She's like, you were somebody during that time that had hope for me when nobody else had hope. And
Interesting.
yeah, and she's like, and you saw me for who I was, not the decisions that I was making. And that was just it was a powerful moment for I think the both of us. My daughter turned around and we both had tears in our eyes, and she's like, "You guys are hormonal," and I'm like,
Yeah.
but we laugh and
Well,
but in that sense, like,
that's
I,
humanizing it, right?
yeah,
That's being human
exactly, exactly.
and seeing that. And I mean, so people, I think, in roles like this, who work in roles like this, um, I don't, I'm not trying to paint everybody with the same brush. I mean, I come from it from a law enforcement background where it's easy to become cynical, where it's
Hmm.
easy to see everybody in the same light, where it's easy to cast judgment based on, well, this is just the way everybody is, when that's not always the case. And I have seen
Right.
those times. I've been in the homes. I can tell you right now, nothing that ever broke my heart more when I was a cop was having to go in and stand by during a child apprehension, to see what a child is experiencing in those times, what the parent, even though they may not be doing the right things at those times, they want to be doing better. They don't want to lose their child in most instances. Um, and it's a heartbreaking thing to see, and to not become cynical in those situations and not just say it is what it is and we're going to do it. It's going to be best for the child long term and all these things, because that's not always the case.
Hmm.
And I think for outsiders looking in who've never worked in that world or never seen that world, there's so much more to the story than what we get at face value.
Right. Yeah. I think oftentimes we forget how hard parenting can be in those moments.
Absolutely.
It is hard. Like, it is hard as somebody that, I don't have, you know, f- housing insecurity. I don't struggle significantly with, I don't struggle with AODA. I don't struggle with, all the things that some of the families that we work with struggle with. And it is still really, really hard
Hmm.
at times. And so you think about if you had added all of those things occurring, sometimes you make decisions out of survival, not because it's a decision, that you want to make. I often think too of like, the reactions from families that we're working with at times. And again, being able to see myself in that, how might I react if there was a social worker at my door questioning my parenting, knowing that they have the power and authority to remove my most prized possession, my children. I
Yeah.
I can assure you I am not going to be Midwest nice then, right?
Yeah.
Like I
Mama
am
bear's
going
coming out, right?
exactly. And so, thinking about, how would I react in that situation myself and trying to, understand that perspective and as we said earlier, really seeing the human being in front of us and the experiences and trials and tribulations that they have been through that, kind of led them to making some of the decisions that they're making can be a powerful approach. And again, can support you in supporting families.
Yeah, 100%. And here's one reason why this topic is important to me. Well, for a couple reasons. One, I mean, I'm doing work with another child protection or child welfare agency, who's very forward thinking in the
Mhm.
way in which they're doing it. They're literally trying to blow up the old model, and get others to take notice on how they're doing business now, and helping, instead of just displacing that child into a foster home or somewhere else, they're looking at it going, how can we help the parents develop and build the skill sets to be able to allow this child to thrive? And so here's why that's important to me when I look at this through another scope. And you and I talked a little bit about it before about are you seeing anything with regards to youth who have been trafficked? Youth who are displaced, who are either put into group homes or foster homes or somewhere else where they don't always feel that love and care. And this can happen in somebody's biological home too. So I'm not saying it doesn't. When they're left then to their own devices or when they're seeking love, when they're seeking support, it's so much easier for them to then fall into the hands of somebody else.
Mhm.
Oftentimes it begins in the online world, but it can happen easily in person too, where that grooming begins because they see a youth in a state of vulnerability. And it becomes very, very easy then for this youth to begin or to enter into the trafficking world. And that's where I see that disconnect and the need to keep them in a loving and supportive environment. So even if it's not in the biological home, putting them with those kin-like roles and people who can keep that culture and community together for them.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. I think about, the countless youth that I've worked with over the years, and what you've described is absolutely, what I have seen in many situations. I'm like, oh my goodness, they are unsafer
Yeah.
here because they are seeking connections and have been abused at the hands of other adults or other individuals that now have access to them because I place them in a community, and they're kind of leaving those spaces and really are being taken advantage of. And again, exactly what you had said, if we can keep them with individuals that they are connected to, and that doesn't have to be grandma, aunt, uncle, cousin, whatever. That can be teacher, that can be neighbor,
Okay.
that can be softball coach, insert anybody that that youth is connected to, and the power that that brings in having that, the ongoing connection, that sense of belonging, the whole feeling feeling seen and feeling heard is going to make, a world of difference. I often ask people to really place themselves in children's shoes that are removed. I know as an adult myself, if someone showed up to my door today and said, "You're coming with me," and didn't give me much information, and I went
Yeah.
to a stranger's home, I can feel myself just saying that and getting dysregulated, feeling those feelings in my belly. Um, and I'm an adult. So when we're thinking about children and what that experience must feel like to go and stay at a stranger's house,
Yeah.
gosh, like who wouldn't agree with children needing to either stay with their parents with some supportive services to of course keep them safe, and or with somebody who knows and loves them. But it's very easy answer, in my world.
Absolutely. So I want to redirect this a bit now, but
Sure.
it's connected to what we're talking about. You also work part-time with an organization, Blue Collar Consulting. And it's an organization that centers around leadership and development and coaching, focused specifically on workplace safety and well-being. Um, you've worked with a variety of different agencies, but mostly it's in the human services arena of, professionalism and, those areas of expertise. What is, I think that that is such an important topic and in such an important role to play. We already talked about it here. It's tough for people who work in these roles not to become cynical, not to develop these points of views that, get away from the true meaning of the work that they're supposed to be doing. And you look to develop leaders and agencies to help support the workforce to have a process of supporting the individuals that they serve. So what is it like? What does that work look like to you? And why did you choose, like, you got to be so busy in the full-time role of
Mm.
child welfare.
Yeah, I
Why do you do
absolutely.
this?
Because it matters. It's a good parallel process, right? So um, I can put all of the practices, policies, procedures, I can, work to change statutes and standards and all of those things. But if the workforce is not being supported within their agencies, none of that is going to matter. If the staff that are doing this work, if the leaders are that are leading that work aren't well because the work is really hard,
Hmm.
that is going to ultimately impact families. And so wanting to kind of mesh both of my worlds with that, I remember what it was like to be a new leader. I had this, vision of what I was, supposed to be and what a leader was meant to be. And once I figured out that I needed to figure out who I was, what I wanted to be as a leader, not what I thought leaders should be, I think that changed things quite a bit for me. I was able to show up authentically, vulnerably, lead with that people first mentality, so providing that vision and being able to kind of co-build that with the teams that I worked with.
Yeah. What are you seeing to be the biggest overall challenges then in employee burnout when it comes to the work that you're doing in child welfare? What's the biggest challenges there? And
Oh,
and
there.
how do you overcome it?
Right. I think there's a lot. So you had mentioned an organization that you're working with that is really kind of challenging that status quo, wanting to do child welfare transformation, which I think there are a lot of agencies here in Wisconsin that are wanting those same things. We've learned a lot over the last numerous years around the impacts of trauma. I think individuals have heard loud and clear that children do better when they are with family, both in short term and the long term. And, the system hasn't really caught up to that quite yet.
Hmm.
And so you're kind of in this messy middle of the change process and having to maybe make decisions that don't really feel good or maybe are in misalignment with your own values and philosophy. And so being able to kind of support agencies through that system change effort um, is has been really a powerful experience.
Yeah. Do you find, does it bring balance? Does it bring alignment to the people that you're working with? Like, do you think that you're there as more than a crutch, but like truly helping them be able to, you can't pour from an empty cup,
Yeah.
right? And being able to fulfill the work that they do?
Yeah, I think we are able to show up because all of us have been in that system transformation work where there's been
Hmm.
a whole lot of excitement, but it's been a whole lot of heavy as well. So being able to normalize their experience, being able to
Yeah.
ask questions and pose questions to make them think more deeply. A lot of focus on that self-care, workforce well-being, it's crucial, right? And it's crucial not just for the staff that are doing the work, but also the leaders that are leading the work.
Hmm.
I could say all day long, take care of yourself, take your lunches, take your breaks, you know, go do yoga, drink water, fuel your body with good things, insert whatever self-care practice you want. If I'm directing that to be done, but then I'm not modeling that um, myself, it
Right.
doesn't it doesn't create the culture or the environment that it truly feels okay. And as I said before,
Yeah.
it's a
People
that
question if they're like, don't see you doing those things. They go like, does she really mean it? Like, is this?
yeah, is it really okay that I take my breaks? Is it really okay that I go and feel the sunshine on my face for a minute because that was a rough phone call?
Hmm.
It's important to be able to model those things.
Well, and this is not to get too far off topic here with it, but I recently had an interaction with a nurse who was a nurse for two schools, both for a upper high school and an elementary school, same campus, same building. And just in quick, like talking to her, this is kind of on that leadership side of things. It was first time meeting her ever. And it was like, hey, how you doing? Like, how's things going? Nice to meet you. And it was an instant boom
Mm,
dump of why everything was not good to be a nurse in this educational institution and how they were feeling and how burnt out they were. And I'm bouncing from one building to the next. And I was like, I've known you for 30 seconds. Holy smokes. But when I
yeah.
look at it then, because my wife and I talked afterwards, are like, whoa, like leadership perspective here for a second. What's happening internally that's causing this person to feel that way? And like, I'm like, she's going to be quitting in the next
Hmm.
month. She'll be done her job here because doesn't feel supported in a supportive environment, right? And so it goes back to you saying people have to see that modeled behavior from you too to truly know that it's okay. So
Yeah,
important.
yeah. And again, if she's showing up that way, yes, I'm sure that you are someone that eludes, like, tell me the
Tell
things.
me everything, let me have it. Yeah.
Yeah, some of us have this sign on the top of our forehead. We're like, yeah, I
Yeah.
just met you and I know your whole life story.
Yeah.
Um, and so I'm sure you create that space, but again, how is she showing up for if she is in that leadership role, how is she showing up for the staff that she supervises? How is she showing up for the patients, she cares for? I would imagine not well. And gosh, how is she showing up for the people that she loves back at home, right?
Right. Oh, such a
Such
critical thing there.
Yeah. And so really making sure that, as a leader, that we're really seeing that whole person. I know that we've talked another time about being able to get to understand the professional that, is you're hired to lead, but getting to really understand them as, as an individual. What lights them up? What's going on in their world? What are
Yeah.
they bringing with them every day to work that might be impacting them, and adjusting your leadership approach, style, response, insert whatever word you like,
Yeah.
to ensure that they feel seen, that they feel heard, that they feel valued, and as you said, supported in doing this work.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, in your shoes, because you said it's important that people see that modeling behavior. And I know there's so many pieces of your work that bring you energy. What de-energizes you? But what do you do? Because that's normal. That's a normal
Hmm.
human response. Those things happen. We all have things that drain us. How do you fill yourself back up?
Yeah. So gosh, what de-energizes me? I think I think the hard piece is that we know so much, right? We know so much about what the system should be,
Hmm.
but the process to change a system, and a system that has been around for as long as the child welfare system has been around, takes a very, very long time. So it is challenging for me in my current role of like, I want to change policy, practice, and procedure like now. I want to
Right.
change it 10 years ago, and so, the bureaucratic nature of the work that I'm currently in it's slow, and there's delays that I don't want to see
Why
see
is that?
happen.
Because people know, people at those decision-making levels, they know that those delays occur. They know that they're
Hmm.
there. And I'm very much, I'm like, let's get shit done. Like, why
Yeah,
can't we do this now? Like, why I joke with some places, I'm like, you have to have a meeting to talk about if you're going to have a meeting. And then once you've had that meeting, you have to have a meeting to talk about the meeting. I'm
yeah.
like, and we fill our days up with needless things instead of taking action and getting things done. So why is that? I get it. There's laws, there's legal, there's certain things it has to meet. It's at a state level, it's whatever. But why can't we change things quicker? People know there's need for it. Why can't we do it?
Well, yes to all the things that you had just said, but I think some of it is just fear. I
Fear of
think
what?
what is going to happen if a child gets hurt? I think there is,
What's going to happen if a child gets hurt because we didn't adapt and change the system?
yeah, exactly. And I think it's easy to stay in the other area of fear because that's what we know, right? We
Yeah,
know
familiar
that
affair, I guess. This is the way we've always done things.
yeah,
That's the worst
exactly.
thing that can ever be said in an organization. Well,
Hmm.
we aren't changing it because this is the way we've always done things. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
so,
Yep. Exactly. And so you stay stuck in this space of, gosh, what might happen if I make this decision? But in that negative space of rather than, oh my gosh, what could happen if we change things,
hmm.
to be what, child welfare system, could be. Um, so I do
Yeah,
think it really, that risk tolerance can be pretty low at times, and
yeah.
feeling like
Well,
the weight
this, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, the weight that carries and can be pretty heavy when you sometimes feel like you're pushing and making decisions all on your own. Nobody makes a decision on their own. Like, we need to share that risk
Agreed.
and do what's right for families. And if we want to talk about money too, like the return on investment for foster care is absolutely, it's terrible. And so
Hmm.
thinking about it, the money that we spend to separate children from their families or to separate families, the cost of that is astronomical. And if we just took a portion of that money and invested in supporting families, what that might look like.
I love that purview. Yeah, that's a great thought. And this is not a knock on the public leaders out there working in public organizations. I've always been, though, of the mindset with some public organizations that are not being run well. This is not at all talking about the state of Wisconsin or any of the work that you're doing. I'm talking in generalities here. I came from a law enforcement background where an internal chief of police is bred from the ground up, and now they're running an organization. And I've challenged and said, if some of these organizations brought in a thought provoking entrepreneur, CEO, CFO, CRO, C suite of some level that has done things in an entrepreneurial perspective, because entrepreneurs look at problems and go, I can solve this and do it a better way, not going, well, this is the Ford Model T and this is the car we're going to keep driving because it's the car that we've just always driven.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need to make it any better. We're not driving around in horses and buggies anymore for a reason. If some public organizations looked at it and said, can we bring in a different type of leader, a different thought type of leader? Could we actually get somewhere, not stay stuck in that point of fear of going, well, something might happen if we fix this?
Yeah. And to take it a step further, what if we started asking families what
Right. We're
what
afraid to
should
ask
be done?
questions, though. We're
Hmm.
afraid to ask them. They don't want to
Hmm.
hear the answer.
No, because that would mean that we're giving up some of our power. Because I think
Right.
that's the other thing of why a system doesn't change. Child welfare system has a whole lot of power, right?
Yeah.
I, again, I had the power and authority to take a child from their parents' home. That is a big chunk of power.
Yeah.
And so if I stopped and again, I'm gonna keep saying I slow down and elevated the family voices that we should be working alongside of and partnering with, what might they tell us they need from a system? And Wisconsin
Hmm.
is, we're doing some work. We have folks with lived experience helping guide some of practice policy changes, things of that nature. But we also have to do it more, really leaning into families are their own expert, and they would be able to tell us a whole lot if we would just stop and listen and
Mm.
maybe release a little bit of that power that we have.
I like it. I like it. We we went down a whole different rabbit hole there that I didn't intend to, but I had previously asked you, what de-energizes you and what do you do for those listening
Oh,
who
yep.
are social workers or whatever? It's like, how do you refill then from those things that can kind of sometimes take away from you?
Yeah, sorry. So a variety of things. And it's little things. We can talk about vacations, right? Like I love going on vacation, but I can't go on vacation all of the time. So it's those daily things. It's a good cup of coffee. It's a conversation with a friend. It's taking a walk during the day to again feel that sunshine. Living in Wisconsin, it's going to get cold soon, and I'm going to get out there now while it's warm. I like to work out. Again, being able to move my body is really, really impactful. Laughing with my children,
Hmm.
finding things that really bring joy to my life. I love baking. I love making things and gifting things to others. Those are bucket fillers for me. Um, my
You're super intentional about it, sounds like.
Right. You have to build it into your everyday or you're not going to do it.
Hmm.
Um, it's very easy to work through your lunch, work late, it, um, ignore some of those important things, and it's going to catch up. It's going to catch up with you. You it's like maintenance, right? So you go every so often to get your oil change as your car tells you to.
Yeah.
And you have to do the same thing for yourself. You can replace a car if you don't take care of a car, but you cannot replace yourself. There's one of you. Um, and making sure that you're really taking care of yourself in those areas that can look different for everybody.
Yeah, 100%. Amazing. Alicia, from the first time that I met you or got connected with you through LinkedIn and saw what you're posting about, and even this morning I read an amazing post that you had put out about, looking at it through the other person's eyes, basically, and how would I feel if I were in this situation, right? You're a wealth of knowledge. It's a breath of fresh air to hear you speak in these terms, and I applaud you for the work that you're doing, because you're not just showing up and go, well, what's the status quo, right? What do I need to do to meet standard here, right? You're going above and beyond. Uh, so thank you for that, because it's an area that's so important to me with child welfare and protection and shielding the vulnerable, those who may not have a voice of their own, to stand up and to do that. So it takes people like you doing that work. Where can people find you at that want to connect with you?
Yeah, so I am pretty active, or I try to be active on LinkedIn. So you can find me there
Yeah.
under Alisha Brown, and hopefully looking forward to connecting with more people.
Yeah, we'll drop that in our show notes. It is Alisha Brown. There will probably be a few of them out there on LinkedIn when you search, so we'll help ease that for you. For anybody who's listening to this, protection of children is something that is so near and dear to my heart. But learning from Alicia that the need to keep people attached to community, attached to culture is a big piece of that puzzle towards creating a successful outcome. She's so clearly articulated and outlined why that is important. For those who are listening, that, I challenge you to continue asking questions, to continue looking at better ways of doing things, to continue to evolve. Don't just always accept things that's just the way they are. I think that we're in a society today where we can ask questions in a respectful manner, that we can challenge things and open our eyes up that there's other possibilities or ways of doing things. If you learned something today, if you like something about this, please share our podcast. It helps us get our message out there about protecting youth, about protecting humanity from so many things that are out there: human trafficking, intimate partner violence, protecting youth from online exploitation, workplace violence and safety. So many things that we stand for here with Shield the Vulnerable and our company, Pursuit Pathways. Talked about my wife's company there as well, so which is also in leadership development. That was a little plug there for Pursuit Institute. But that is it, everybody. It's been another great episode of Shield the Vulnerable. Alisha, thank you again so much for being here with us today.
Thanks so much, Dave.